Garland in the corner. He's got it. Feed stand. Pow! With the right hand. Mitchell shakes. Up to the basket. And thunders it home. Oh! Mobley throws it down. And Allen blocked the shot at the rim.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. Well, last season we had to wait a very long time for the Cavs to get their first loss of the season. Unfortunately, this year, the Cavs dropped their opener at Madison Square Garden. Joining me today is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, you know, not the most fun season opener. I'm a little disappointed. But you know, that's how it goes. You can't always start the year with a 15-game win streak. I was expecting you to be excited.
Normally you're excited when you have a body to autopsy. That's one of your go-to lines here, my friend.
I know. Yeah, it was I didn't think they played a very good game. To be honest, even with the injuries, I don't think, you know, I definitely saw some stuff that's concerning. Definitely some stuff I expect to get better. And then, you know, a few nuggets of things that are very exciting. So, like, you know, I think there's plenty to talk about, but, like, you know, you just wanted to come out a little sharper than that. And they certainly did not.
Yeah, it was funny. I think it was between the third and fourth quarter when they were talking about on the broadcast what Kenny Atkinson said they could do better. Actually, that might have been coming in out of the halftime. And, you know, I thought it was spot on that the team needed to be sharper. They weren't getting very good looks. You know, I've seen people talk about the free throw discrepancy, and the Cavs in the first half, they only got 8 shots in the interior. Like, they were not driving to the basket. They were not earning any of those attempts, right? Like, you're not obligated to have that free throw marker be even. That's not the way that games work and how officiating works. And I really did feel like for a lot of this game, the Cavs were struggling to get quality looks and kind of settling for some of those outside shots. And, you know, we talk about, you know, people will talk about how the regular season doesn't matter. They definitely say that about the preseason, but that was something that we actually saw in preseason where it felt like they were not getting penetration, they were not putting pressure on the rim, and kind of floating and taking some of those outside shots. And there were times tonight where it kind of felt like my least favorite aspects of the Boston Celtics offense last year, where it's like, you're not really even working to get these threes up. Like, there are better shots that you can earn later in the clock.
Yeah, There definitely agree with that. I do worry a little bit about the personnel in terms of being able to consistently get downhill against the OG Anunobis and the Mikal Bridges of the world. You know, I've been talking about it all offseason, and, you know, it's hard not to go to, you know, we always talk about how people like to go to their priors under duress, and you know, it's hard for me not to go to my priors after a game where the offense looked this choppy, even when the team shot well, both from the field and from three, where there's no Karis LeVert to spell you when you're a little beat up. There's no Ty Jerome to spell you when you're a little beat up or need someone just to generate a look. And, you know, while I really liked Evan's general aggressiveness, I didn't think he was a very aggressive ball handler in this game.
Interesting.
On the few opportunities that he ran pick and roll, you know, it was a pretty simple hedge and recover for New York. Not helped by some, frankly, strange spacing and rolling from the smalls who were setting those picks. Like, they ran into Evan a couple times and ran into ball handlers a couple times. Like, the floor awareness and, you know, slipping out into open space to punish those hedges was not really happening. So, like, you know, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B there, but, like, it really was like, Donnie get downhill or no one's getting downhill. And if no one's getting downhill, you're just going to kind of swing and try to get a decent, you know, a semi-open 3-point shot.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Evan, it was kind of a tale of two halves for me, at least when it comes to him getting downhill. It felt like in the first half, it almost reminded me of that first season with LeBron and Kyrie, where it's like, okay, this is going to be a Kyrie possession, and this one's going to be a LeBron possession. You know, that early season portion, you could just tell, like, we're going to get the ball to Evan, and he's going to isolate, and he's going to try to get to the basket. He's going to get to that turnaround jumper, and he was getting to his spots against Karl Anthony Towns, but it felt forced. Like it really felt like there was a lot of isolation, a lot of kind of
A lot
guys
of just
standing around
straight
and watching.
posts, which was
Pardon
a
me?
little a lot of straight posts, which I was like,
Right.
that's not in the how to attack Karl Towns playbook.
Right. And, you know, going back to that Cavs team, that was something that teams would try to do against Kevin Love. And it's like, okay, well, that's actually one of the spots where, you know, he is going to be able to hold his own defensively rather than attacking him in space. And it just goes against what we've talked about on the last podcast, which is ideally those Mobley isolation attacks feel like Siakam in Indiana, where there's work done beforehand, there's ball movement done beforehand to help him not have to work as hard, where he's going to catch the ball with a little bit more of advantage. He's going to catch the ball on the move. And there wasn't a lot of guys catching the ball on the move or catching it with advantage at all in the first half. I thought Donovan, after seeing the third quarter, I feel like Donovan was pacing himself a little bit in the first half. But a lot of those possessions, he's catching the ball. And again, he's not catching it in an advantageous situation. He's catching it at a dead stop and forced to kind of create against a set defender. Whereas in the third quarter, he had a little bit of momentum on the catch. He had a little bit of juice, and his life was made easier as a result of that. He also, you know, cranked up the intensity and does what Donovan Mitchell does. But I just thought that the overall oomph to this offense just wasn't there, and there was too much floating, frankly, on both ends of the floor. But on offense, it really was pretty stark.
Yeah, I think you're dead right, and I think that's actually, it's one of those bummer outcomes where one of the best parts of the game kind of doubles as a concerning part of the game for this stretch of season. Where like the only time it kind of felt like the offense had verve was when Donnie was going nuts and expending a lot of energy and working very, very hard on that end of the floor. And frankly, doing a lot of self-creation. You know, and we like that as they break glass in case of emergency option, but that, you know, we don't want to build the whole plane out of that. And I think if you're gonna have a roster and play guys like Larry Nance, Dean Wade, Lonzo Ball, Jalen Tyson, Sam Merrill as your role players, like, you can't, like, that's an offense that cannot be lollygagged through. Like,
Right.
And we've talked a lot about how, like, even like as much as I really love Ty, like the case for what this roster is now is like hey, we're gonna rip the Band-Aid off and you're gonna have to learn how to generate offense without just a pick and roll initiator every single play.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of those spots where if you were like, are they going to be as good in the regular season? My argument was kind of like no, because they have to learn how to do this. And like and that's kind of where the floor can kind of drop out on you offensively when you don't have the crutch or the easy thing to go to if Donnie isn't initiating offense every play. And like, I think that's where they really got burned.
Yeah. And Lord knows I wear my fandom on my sleeve, right? Like I do not hide my biases and whatnot. And everybody knows I'm a massive fan of Darius Garland. But I've said this a few times, and I think it needs to be said again tonight. As much as I'm a fan of him, it can't be, when you look at the offense, this isn't LeBron James. It shouldn't be this stark of a difference when he's on the court versus off the court. Even last year, when you're looking at those individual offensive on-off numbers, it was with him on, it was the best offense in NBA history. With him off, it was a league average offense, right? Like it was around 15th or 16th if you're looking at that offensive rating. And that's with Donovan, that's with Ty, right? Like that's not this new kind of reality that we're in. And yes, the Cavs were obviously missing very key parts, right? 3 of the top 6 were not available with DG, Hunter, and Strus. We know that's going to be a prolonged absence. And when you talk about the getting downhill, creating looks for everybody else, obviously Darius is a major part of that. But Max is important too, from a rim pressure standpoint and that secondary playmaking. I think that's something that we sometimes take for granted a little bit with him. And it just is more stark where you are in, this new kind of roster build, and there is a bit of a feeling out process. And, part of it, I do think an element of this is Cavs haven't played since Tuesday, right? Like I'm sure that's a little bit of it. There's some rust and whatnot, but it's it's stuff that we saw even in the preseason when they were playing multiple games. This floating, the lack of rim pressure. So as much as I think maybe you could attribute some of the first half and the jitters and the pressing to not playing for a while, the structural concerns I think are all valid here.
Yeah, and I kind of thought they'd figured it out even when Donnie wasn't going ballistic in the third quarter. They started finding some good things, like Lonzo found Larry for that empty side pick and roll alley-oop. Yeah. They just got guys going towards the rim and trying to turn the corner.
And that was the stretch where I was like, they haven't played in over a week. Well, the Knicks' last preseason game was on the weekend. Maybe that was some factor, but it went back, right? Like it regressed even after the third quarter, right? There were the moments of them figuring out it and putting it together, and then there was other moments where that decision making and those mistakes once again reared their ugly head.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think I'm going to feel a little nervous about this offense in the early part of the season, especially until Hunter gets back. But I don't know if Hunter solves all of this stuff, No. And
he's just going to be more likely to make those shots.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to spend the entire episode Debbie Downing because there was some good stuff. But I do think we need to talk about the defensive end of the ball because I don't think it was that great there either. I think they played a bad game today. I mean, frankly.
I think so too. There were elements that I found interesting. So you look at the first half, Jarrett Allen had that play where he came up and poked the ball out. I think it was from Karl Anthony Towns. He had a possession like that in the preseason too, where he got a steal in that spot. And I thought both of those plays were noteworthy because I don't think Jarrett in his entire tenure with the Cavs has ever got a steal in that situation. I think in the past they've always sat back a little bit more. I did feel more aggressiveness on the perimeter, like they are going for steals and they're trying to generate pressure. But when you're doing that style of defense and you're a step slow, what that leads to is you being woefully out of position in a lot of spots. If you're going to play a high pressure, high intensity defense, a very important half of that is the intensity. And I felt that was lacking. And I think some of it led to miscommunication. It led to breakdowns. Guys were out of position. And when you're out of position, what tends to happen? You tend to give up a lot of second chance opportunities because defensive rebounds largely are your reward for being fundamentally sound, taking care of business on the defensive end, finding a body, and ending that possession. You do not get that. You do not consistently defensive rebound when you are not in position. So I thought that there were things that, I can understand what they're doing, and the changes to the defensive, scheme and all that are stuff that we wanted to see. I thought it was interesting that on screens there was more show and recover. They were not giving up the switches as willfully as they have in the past. That was something that you and I have really, really wanted to see with this team, and I was very happy with what the plan of attack is on handling those screens. It came down to execution, and I think it also came down to personnel. Because I think there were some personnel issues on the defensive end that really kind of reared its ugly head.
Yeah, I mean, to speak to what you just hit on, they're playing aggressive. I mean, 25 fouls is a lot of fouls. Giving up 36 free throw attempts. And I thought, there was some foul baiting stuff there. There was some point of emphasis stuff with the high five on the shot that
I hate that one.
I don't like. But, for the most part, I was like, guys are fouling them. I think they
It's
were
a point of emphasis thing, but that's how they're supposed to call it now.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that rule change, but it is in fact the rule.
yeah, just across the board. I just think the Cavs were looked slow-footed at the point of attack against the guards.
Yeah.
I talk about going back to your priors, a little concerned about the lack of a wing stopper on the team in a post-Okoro world. And I don't know.
Stopper or guard stopper?
Or guard stopper, sorry. And I don't know if anyone looked great. Maybe Proctor looked the best, or Lonzo.
I got to take there, but yes, continue.
I just thought the Knicks pretty consistently turned the corner, and then the Cavs had to guard with their hands. And when you guard with your hands against Jalen Brunson, he gets 13 free throw attempts without really getting to the rim that much.
Yeah, I thought Jalen Tyson in particular got beat quite a bit, both on and off ball, where, this is a continual concern that we've had, where I feel he's a lot better defensively when he's playing at the 3-4. I think, possessions where he was matched up against like an OG Anunoby, OG's not turning the corner on him, right? And some of that is OG's offensive skill set, but I think that that's a situation that he's much better matched for. And the pairing with Sam Merrill, like the two of them, it just isn't a lot of resistance at the point of attack. Like what Sam does really works well within a structured defense where, you have the back end support, you have other perimeter defenders, and he can do a good job chasing guys around screens, suppressing those shots, forcing them into the mid range. But he's not someone that stays ahead of his guy at the point of attack in isolation situations very frequently, right? Like Mikal Bridges and some of the other guys turn the corner on him pretty easily. And when you have two guys like that, it really does put a lot of stress on the defense, particularly when they're gambling for steals. They're overhelping in a lot of these situations. We didn't want the Cavs to sit back in the shell defensively, like they did last season, which worked incredibly well, but we didn't feel like they made teams uncomfortable. The team that looked uncomfortable tonight was the Cavs, trying to apply that much pressure. It just felt like they were trying to have that as a point of emphasis, but it came at the expense of any shell defensively.
Yeah, and the thing that's so cool about an Oklahoma City team is they disrupt and they make the easy stuff hard. And like, I honestly, the tracking data isn't going to be out yet, but I would surmise that New York underperformed their shot quality in this game. There were a lot of wide open Jalen Brunson threes. And like, if there's not a symptom of a broken play on defense, it's a wide open Jalen Brunson catch and shoot three, or like guys just not knowing who is supposed to X out to the corner. There's that one play early where Tyson and Donovan both close out on Cat at the wing, and I think it was Jalen, got a wide open corner three. A lot of open, easy shots that I think New York did the Cavs some favors by missing. A lot of easy buckets at the rim. A lot of like easy dunker spot cuts. It was not a strong outing for these fellas on either end of the floor in this one. And I guess you could say, hey, only lost by 8. They were in it down at the stretch, so that's pretty good. But again, I think the Cavs overperformed their shot quality a little bit in this one.
I wouldn't go that far, just because the shooting was so poor. But at the same time, like, we didn't love
the shot 41% from 3.
Oh, sure didn't feel like that.
47 from 2.
It sure didn't feel like that. But I think it helped that Evan Mobley 4 of 8, and I think Sam was 5 of 10. So
yep.
When two guys shoot
Dean,
at that
Dean
volume,
and Larry 5 of 5 combined.
There you go. Yeah. I think that's fair. The one thing I want to keep in mind when it comes to, Evan Mobley touches, right? Like trying to empower him and have him be aggressive, whether it comes to the defense being more aggressive. There's going to be growing pains trying to execute a change to how you have done things in the regular season. I think last season enhanced what the Cavs already had as strengths, And that's why it looks so natural, right? Like there was a different level of buy-in for the Cavs. We got up and down the floor quicker than we had the year prior, but we were really building upon our strengths. Now we're trying to add things that weren't really there last season, and there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be awkward aspects of this, but I do think, certain parts of it come down to, the personnel question of, are these guys capable of doing it? You're going to want to allow them to experiment. You're going to want to allow them to make mistakes, but you do now have a regular season to work on all that stuff. But you do have to evaluate that stuff of, are we getting better at it? Or does this still look like something that we're not capable of pulling off?
Yeah, that's going to be the question, especially with the defense of, because we spent all summer talking about how we want them to play a little more chaotically, play passing lanes more. What I think we're going to need to find out is that a viable strategy, or is that a shirt that doesn't, from someone else's closet that they're trying to put on? Like, is this a team that's better suited to just hang back, and you have to live with the results, and I always go to our boy Ben Cox, his evergreen tweet, which is, they lose because of their offense. Well, maybe you don't need to change the defense that much. Like, this is what experimenting in the regular season looks like, by the way. It's not like, I think sometimes
it would
people
be so hypocritical for us to say, hey, like this felt awkward in game one, like abandon all these changes that we're advocating for, at least wanting to see last season, right?
Yeah, so like, this is what it looks like. It's not like, I think people think it means like don't care about winning games. It's about trying strategies that are not currently your most optimal road to winning games, and seeing what you learn from trying those strategies sometimes, and I'm not sure the Cavs have ever really committed to that in their tenure. Like, even when they've had bad stretches in the last couple years, it's generally just been poor play. It's not like, I haven't really felt them exploring the space a ton. So that is part of it. But I'm looking at the box score, Justin, and like, you look at the shot distribution. Donovan leads the team with 25 attempts. Evan puts up 18. Sam puts up 11. Then it's a couple smatterings of 7 attempts. Larry at 7, Lonzo at 7. Jarrett only gets up 4. We're gonna need to talk about Jarrett in this game, but like, I don't know, other than Jarrett, where the field goal attempt volume is going to come from with this iteration of the roster to kind of loosen things up a little bit. Yeah. Like, there's no like 16 shot attempt guys out here.
You're right. One last thing I want to add, before we move off the defensive topic is, if you look at last year's tracking data, right, from Basketball Index, when it comes to perimeter isolation defense. So what that measures is not only what shooting percentage do you allow in those isolation situations, it's, do you get your man to give up the ball as well, right? So this is strictly an isolation. The top ranked Cavs last year in terms of percentile in, that tracking data, DeAndre Hunter was number 1, Isaac Okoro was number 2, Darius Garland was number 3, Javonte Green was number 4, Dean Wade was number 5, and Max Strus was number 6.
I thought Dean was the only guy who guarded well tonight on the perimeter, by the way.
So, obviously 2 of those guys are no longer on the roster, in Isaac Okoro and Javonte Green, but the rest of them pretty much didn't play, with the exception of Dean Wade, right? Like, so I think what you are able to do defensively, like, Darius isn't a plus defender. Do not get me wrong. He does well on the perimeter. He stays in front of his man, but there's going to be situations where, his man catches the ball with deep post position, and he's going to get abused in those spots. He doesn't create a lot of turnovers and stuff like that, but he does a really good job of staying in front of his man and guarding up in those situations. And he's who they use at the point of attack. DeAndre Hunter is important to their defense. Max Strus is really important to their defense. So I do think, there is a higher upside. I would say, like, one of my knee-jerk takeaways, which would be, once again, confirmation bias of my priors, is I do not feel comfortable with Sam Merrill and Jalen Tyson on the court at the same time defensively. Like, I think that's a spot where if it's going to happen when you're shorthanded, you have to be less aggressive defensively and stay in your shell. And like, let's try to, force teams to play out on the perimeter, not give up, potential situations where there's those blow-bys, the defense gets in rotation, and then we're just lost.
Yeah, I think that's very, very fair. I don't think Jalen acquitted himself particularly well in this opener. I don't think that the offense really wasn't there. And by the way, that's a guy who you kind of want to maybe be able to get downhill against Jalen Brunson.
I would.
Like, that's kind of part of what you want to see there. And then
I'd like to see some of those, screen a coral roll to the basket situations with Jalen Tyson. Like that was something that they didn't even really try to do that I would have liked to, at least experiment with.
On a few of them, he just ran into the ball handler. So,
well, there was that.
I don't know. Maybe it was a nerves thing or
very possible, but like that's one of those things
I just don't think he navigated.
Like, just screen and roll, screen and pop. Where knowing the spacing and the nuances of that is actually a skill. That's something that is important.
Yeah. So like I don't think he read the floor very well in this game, and then
agreed,
and then got caught, and I think there's going to be matchups that are much better for him on the defensive end of the floor. Jalen Brunson is not one of those matchups. Brunson's so tough, but I just don't think. I thought the best they looked actually were their zone possessions. Though they had a few busts there too. So
there was. I was about to say there was one that was like comically bad. I think it was either late third quarter or early fourth quarter, but there were some that did look a whole lot better.
Yeah. All right. Can we talk about something fun for a minute before our listeners get too down in the dumps?
I would love to talk about something fun, and that something fun is Zoom AI Companion, because it's always there for me.
We're using it right now on the pod.
Absolutely. Because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion.
All right, let's talk about Evan.
Go for the fun. Evan?
Let's talk about Evan, because I do think, even though I had some notes on the ball handling stuff, I loved the aggressiveness. I loved the comfort in going up for these threes early in the shot clock, and like even when there were a couple times where I was like, I don't know about that one. It's like I do have to I almost had to flick myself in the arm and be like, hey. You want him to play like a star. Stars take shots off schedule.
Yeah.
And he made one of those pull-up threes in transition to, I think, get the game back to like 5 or 6 or something like that in the fourth. And overall, I was impressed by the comfort with the shot. I thought defensively he probably was the best of a pretty rough outing overall. A couple bad luck fouls as well there, but overall I thought he had a very nice game. Like to see the 18 shots, and I think he kind of is the key to unsticking things while they have this personnel out there.
Yeah, I agree. Like I thought the situations he was put in, particularly early in the game, were not doing him any favors. But I was impressed that he was able to get to his spots against Karl Anthony Towns to get clean looks in those situations. Quite a few that could have easily gone down. You can just see that the skill development is at a different level. And I think Tim Legler was making accurate points on the broadcast where he's like, the handle to get to his spots, to take these shots, and the confidence of taking these shots, not passing it up. That possession where he got it on the perimeter, recognized that he had the ability to blow by to the basket, and doing so, all of that stuff had me really, really excited. And I liked that the shooting continued, even though he missed some early, right? Like the confidence never wavered, right? Like he was going to go down swinging, and that's something that we've asked from him, time and time again. So it's a very, very encouraging sign that this thing is going in the right direction with Evan Mobley. The thing that I messaged, our little group chat on the side about in the third quarter was when Donovan got heating up, I was said, all right, now this is an important test because let's see if Evan still is used within the offense here, right? Like, or does this turn into, all right, Donovan's taking all these shots. Now, Donovan had a massive third quarter. It was terrific.
I loved him taking all those shots.
I did too.
I wanted him to shoot every position down.
I did as well. But, Evan got one shot in the third quarter. And then the thing that I felt was noteworthy in the fourth quarter, he did get 4 shots up in the fourth quarter. Only one of them came inside the 3-point line. He only had 2 shots in the second half inside the 3-point line. And when you consider that the Cavs actually got back, within striking distance and even took the lead, had a chance to, come away with, an upset given how the game had gone to that point, it would have been really nice to kind of get him some more high value looks in that second half.
I just don't know who was doing it in this one.
Yeah. But again, that's just one of those things that we have to keep an eye on, right? Like there are going to be times where Donovan just gets it going and, Evan, Darius, everyone's just going to have to, kind of stand around a little bit. But it's just, keeping an eye on, is Evan involved? Is he at least, or is Evan involved in getting Donovan when he's rolling, a little dribble handoff, like a little bit of an easier look? Or is he just, he's going to come up and down the court and just kind of score in isolation situations, right? Like that might be what the evolution is, hey, Donovan's cooking, but let's get him like an easy look to keep this hot streak going rather than letting that flame burn and figuring out how much fuel is there, right? Like we can sprinkle some gasoline on that fuel. We can get him a couple easier looks kind of within that process and keep the good times rolling.
Yeah, and that's where the sharpness really just needs to be there. Because again, you're not gonna you can't just waltz your way into 2 on the ball so Donovan gets to catch the ball and get to attack a closeout with the personnel that they have right this second. I think a crispness that we talked about being lacking is why that flame happened to burn out in the fourth, and it kind of went back to the same old offense for the Cavs. Again, a very disappointing outing, I would say, on that end of the floor. Who else impressed you in this game?
I think I'm there with Tyrese Proctor already, man. Like, I just think on a night where, you mentioned, before I get into Proctor, because I'm worried that I'm just going to keep ranting and raving here. I thought it was noteworthy. You mentioned Dean had a really good game. I thought he did have a very good game on the defensive end. 28 minutes to 17 for Larry, right? Like that's something that we're keeping an eye on. I don't know if that would have been the case if DeAndre Hunter was playing. I kind of
thought he earned every minute.
I actually thought he might end up starting, right? Like, let's keep Jalen in kind of his normal position, have Dean start at the 3 to fill in for Hunter, keep everyone as close to their ideal roles as possible. But I thought he absolutely earned those minutes. I thought it was noteworthy that the same thing kind of happened for Tyrese Proctor and Craig Porter Jr. Craig got his first kind of look in the first half. He played 6 minutes. Tyrese earned those 16 minutes that he got. Like, I thought in a game where guys looked uncomfortable, like they were pressing on both the offensive and defensive end, he looked composed the entire time that he was out there, right? Like, even when guys kind of turned the corner a little bit on him defensively, he stayed connected and kind of maintained that physicality on drives and was disruptive in those spots. There was a play at the end of the third quarter where he came screaming across the court on a closeout on that last shot attempt by the Knicks. And, I think a lot of the guys with how they were playing defensively fouled the shooter in that spot. Tyrese had enough body control to really slow things down, land in the right spot, and actually get a contest there. I was just really, really, really impressed with his composure on both ends of the court, knocking down his first 2 shots. I thought the corner 3, he maybe aimed just a little bit where Donovan swung it to him. But I thought on a game where a lot of guys were lacking composure, it was noteworthy that a guy making his NBA debut showed a lot of it. And, we talk about personnel concerns. I think we just have to play Tyrese Proctor this year. I think we have to find out what we have in him. because I think he's the only player on this roster with the capability of being a guard stopper. And that's not saying, you know, a top 10, you know, defensive guard stopper, 99th percentile, anything like that. I think he's the only one that can get to a 90th percentile, which means, you know, as far as guards go, there's probably, when you hear 90th percentile, that means there's 50, 60 guys that do a better job of it than you. But he at least has the body type. He has the you know, the kind of the pedigree to be a stopper in that position and someone that you trust to guard and make those shots tough. And when I look at someone that can shoot the ball, that's composed, takes care of the basketball, and actually has that within his profile, I think we just kind of have to play him. I think we have to figure out if we have something here, and maybe he can have, you know, that Christian Braun type impact as a rookie of somebody that, you know, you're not asking him to do too much, but he fills a role that nobody else can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not there yet. I think those are all a little too big right this second, and I would have some questions about what it means for the rest of the roster and this team's ceiling, if like he must play to help this team hit
like 12 minutes
to hit a championship ceiling for this roster. But like what I liked in this game was when he had the ball, he tried to probe and get 2 feet in the paint. It wasn't always, you know, perfectly bearing fruit, but like he at least got 2 feet in the paint. And I'm not sure you could say the same too much about Craig or Lonzo or Sam or Jalen or and even sometimes Donovan. You know, Donovan was a very jumper happy player in this game, and that's fine. But overall, I liked the slow control and the demand that the Knicks make a decision on the defensive end of the floor. So I think he gets a lot of credit. Last little bit of positivity before we dip into back into Bummer Town for me. I thought Larry had a nice offensive outing. It helps that the 2 threes hit, but him catching the lob as a roller and attacking empty space for a dunk, like those are things that we haven't really had a ton from our backup 4 or backup 5. Also notable with Jarrett having an awful game, Bummertown incoming. He also got some minutes at the 5 with Jarrett and Evan on the bench. I thought he was pretty solid on that end. I wouldn't say great, but 6 rebounds in 17 minutes, not too bad. I thought he was okay.
Communications for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I trust Larry to figure things out defensively, right? Like that's one of the things about integrating new pieces, whether it be Larry and Alonzo. There were times where there were miscommunications, right? Like Alonzo had that pass to Sam in the corner where I think he thought, okay, Sam's 6'7" instead of 6'3", 6'4". But like, I trust Larry to figure it out, right? Like he's such a cerebral player. He has such a strong defensive pedigree. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. I think that's new player, new situation, growing pains. But you're right. I thought he brought something to the table. Like it's noteworthy. Like you felt that the Cavs were a little more shallow tonight. Like it wasn't a great game for the bench, and that's going to happen when 3 out of your top 6 are missing, right? Like it just shifts. If you're going to play a 10-man rotation, it shifts guys 11 through 13 into that 10. But even in that situation, I'm glad that we at least had 3 guys that I felt good about what they brought off the bench with Lonzo, Larry, and Proctor. Like and Dean. So 4, right? Like I thought that there was at least encouraging signs with those 4.
Yeah, that's fair. Shall we head to Bummertown and talk about Jarrett Allen for a minute?
Yeah, well, what have we said time and time again? That he is the canary in the coal mine. When the team looks listless, when there isn't health to how they're playing offensively, he is not someone that is going to change that situation. And that's disappointing because when he is locked in and he is playing active, he is someone that can average, 17 and 14 against a uber physical Orlando Magic in a playoff series, right? Like he is capable of doing that. You would hope that, there's a little bit of that, Tristan Thompson rubbing off on him that, hey, the team is really struggling offensively. I'm going to go out there and create those extra possessions. That just doesn't seem to be the case. Like he is someone that raises the ceiling, but he is not someone that drags up your floor. And that's, it's disappointing. Like this was a really, really tough, bad, disappointing game for Jarrett, and there's no way around it.
Yep. I think it was the lack of explosion was rough. The lack of assertiveness was rough. And, when I went through that list of field goal attempts, and the one big glaring one is like, Jarrett, we need you to get to 8 or 9 shots.
Yeah.
We just do, and we need you to be flashing aggressively into open space, finishing with both hands the way we know you're very, very capable of. We need you. The rebounding stuff, I'll always point to what you mentioned, which is like, it's hard when you're completely out of sorts to grab a bunch of boards, but, didn't stop Larry from out rebounding him, didn't stop Evan from grabbing 8.
Didn't stop Lonzo from getting 6.
Yeah, so like Lonzo had 4. He had 6 assists.
What? Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But nevertheless, like, these are all real things, I think, to point at and just say, like, hey, man, we need you. We need you to help carry us through a period where we are missing 3 of our top 6 players.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a very long period if DeAndre gets back soon, but
well, not only that, DG, teasing on the broadcast, getting me all excited.
I know.
I think the team, I think it was either Danny, Chris, someone on the beat basically saying, he wants to play, and the team is going to be very responsible with that. But it's really encouraging that he is playing 5-on-5, full contact practice, that sort of thing, that there hasn't been setbacks, that, Kenny said he's ahead of schedule. Like, all of that stuff is really encouraging that, it's not going to be what people feared, which, listening even to some national podcasts, they're like, well, if Darius can come back by, January, February, I think that'll be okay. Like, I don't think we're in that territory, which is a nice feeling.
Yeah. But with all that said, like, what you mentioned earlier, that just can't be the solve every time. Like, no. You have to, again, going back to the Indiana Pacers thing, which I'm sure some fans are sick of me talking about, but like, the Pacers are still tough as hell to play and find their way to good offense, even when Halliburton isn't on the floor. And they have an identity, even when he's not on the floor, and an over dependence on Darius to set the table. It's not a problem, I guess, per se, but it is when he's not available or
when he's limited,
banged
right?
up.
Like, when we talk about the shortcomings of the offense in the playoffs the last 2 years, so right, like, Darius being a shell of himself, big part of that. Like, we saw him healthy for a glimpse against Miami, and he led the team in scoring, and he looked like our best player out there for those 2 games. But it just, you can't be that reliant. We need to have a healthier offensive ecosystem, particularly when you brought in playmakers. You brought in Larry, you brought in Lonzo, who, we didn't talk a lot about it. Obviously, he didn't shoot well. I didn't love that all of his attempts were 3-pointers. It kind of felt like Max when he first came back from injury, and it's like, all right, the ball is touching my hands for 0.5 of a second, and I'm getting this shot up. But there were times where he got in, inside the 3-pointer, created really good shot attempts for other guys. That lob pass he threw to Mobley was absolutely bonkers, like,
yes,
over the basket. Like, he's just such a creative, high IQ player. I'm really, really happy to have him on the roster. But to get back to my point, you brought in Larry, you brought in Lonzo. You're empowering Jalen Tyson, who has shown playmaking chops in the past. You brought in Tyrese Proctor, who, has played point guard, in his past, and at the very least is a combo guard that's bringing you playmaking. The intention of all of these things is to be less reliant on Darius and, to some extent, Donovan as well, to create.
On the pick and roll guard archetype. Let's just say that.
Correct. So, it's going to take some figuring out, but, the flip side of it's going to take some time to figure out is it's going to take some time to figure out. Like, it might look ugly sometimes, and we're going to be learning if it is enough playmaking and if these guys are capable of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, not writing off Jarrett's whole season after one game. He's just going to be prone to these, man, and it doesn't feel good. And he has to figure out a way to excise them, especially in these environments where they really, really need him. Luckily, so 82 games, man. We got a lot of time to right the ship here. A let's call them a soft opponent in the Brooklyn Nets on Friday. They got trounced on the road against the Hornets. The Cavs don't have to leave New York for this game. So would certainly like to see a sharper outing before the home opener against Milwaukee.
Yeah, totally agree. What did you think of the Knicks in this one? I thought, you could definitely feel, at least in my eyes, I felt the structural change a little bit with Mike Brown. I thought that they played with a little bit more tempo offensively. They do look deeper. Obviously, Cavs were without their, 3 of their top 6. No Josh Hart and no Mitchell Robinson for the Knicks. Not the same level of guys missing, but they are guys that bring a fair bit to the table. What did you think of the Knicks?
Honestly, man, this isn't a great answer. I just don't think I got to learn that much about the Knicks because I think the Cavs didn't play very well, and I don't know how much. Like, did the Knicks get better at diversifying their entry points on offense to not just be Brunson over and over again, or was every Knicks ball handler able to turn the corner when they attacked with the ball? You tell me. I don't think I got a great takeaway from how the Knicks are going to be different. Other than I thought Yabu was fine in his very limited minutes.
That's fair. Yeah. When Tyler Kolek's getting to where he wants, it does make you ask questions about what's going on the defensive end. That's for sure.
Yep.
There is, the one little complaint that I'll have. There is a lot of flopping, man. Like Karl Anthony Towns, Sam Merrill ran into you. You can't go flying like that. I'm sorry. Like I love Sam. He's more sturdy than you would think, but then that is not something that he made you do.
Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, there's a fair bit to figure out. It doesn't sound like it's too serious with DeAndre Hunter. He went through practice. He went through shoot around today. I expect the Cavs to take a very conservative approach when it comes to guys and their health this season. They are going to prioritize that. They're going to keep these guys as healthy as possible, and in doing so, are going to open up opportunities for these guys. Right, like. We can talk about the reinforcements coming, and you're going to get your top guys back. But there are going to be various times throughout this season where every single player that played tonight is going to be counted on to fill a role. And it might be a feeling out process to figure out what role are these guys capable of, fulfilling in a way that works collectively for this team, right? Like guys might get more of a shot early in the season than they will later in the season, right? Like Jalen Tyson is going to get some runway to make mistakes out there, but it's possible that role is going to have to be contracted to something that he's more suited to, and you build towards it in practice to have a little bit more room to explore the space in the future, right? Like it's part of the process of replacing guys that are no longer here and empowering others is figuring out exactly what works for them within the greater context of the team.
Yep, that's we're going to see a lot better outings than we saw tonight. I definitely have, you want your opening night game to quell all of your concerns and open up your mind to new opportunities for the team that you never saw. And we didn't get that tonight. But that's just not always how it works. I mean, for how long did the Cavs always lose their season opener? Like it always felt like every year that was like start with a loss and then find your way.
This is what happens when you win a preseason game, man. We won the first time. We won a preseason game for the first time since 2022, and
messed up the whole juju.
Karma coming back. I will disagree just a little bit. I'm not coming out tonight feeling great. Obviously, like overall, that was a disappointing result. My mind is I'm still going galaxy brain here because the single most important thing that we care about coming into the season is Evan Mobley, and Evan looked awesome.
Yeah, he did.
Some of those shots didn't go down, but Evan Mobley looks like that unicorn. He looks awesome. And we are just going to figure out throughout this season of how to continue to get him those looks. It's going to look more comfortable as the season goes on. It's not going to feel like your turn, my turn, hopefully, as we go through this. So that is something that I'm coming away from this game feeling excited about, because Mobley went out there. He went 4 of 8 from 3. He scored well in this game, with 22 and 8. He had the assists, he had the steals, he had the blocks, all the stuff that, like, this game would have been really exciting and would be the only thing that we would talk about on a podcast in the past. And this is he can build on this performance. It's just fine, right? Like the standard for Evan Mobley has been raised, and it's been raised by how much potential and how much actual basketball he's showed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He is the guy that raises the ceiling for this team, and there was a lot to like with what he brought to this game. And there's parts of this game I don't even think he did that well, which goes to reference like what you're talking about with like the ceiling is just so high. So if this is like a baseline effort and I had notes, that means we're gonna have a pretty special Evan Mobley season in front of us.
Yeah, it's the baseline, and even with it being a bad defensive performance, I think he raised the floor enough on the defensive end. Like I think he is that talented on that end that we actually had a chance to still win this game potentially, right? Like I think that's not even remotely possible if you don't have someone that's as impactful as Evan Mobley. So we will be going live after Friday's game as well. That should be a much easier matchup for the Cavs, so we'll see how they do in that one. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of the Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the view to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.